The stars above the neutral station were cold and quiet. The station itself floated in empty space, a round metal ball painted white and gray. Inside its main hall, bright lights shone on smooth black floors. Today, the hall felt smaller than usual. Everyone was watching one spot in the center. High Chancellor Vextra stood tall on the raised platform. He was more than 3 meters high. His skin changed color slowly, blue to green to violet, like oil on water. 6 long arms moved behind him in calm, practiced patterns. His voice came through every speaker in the room, deep and slow. "People of Earth," he said, "the Zelthari Empire claims the systems called Kale 9, Torva Belt, and the Outer Rings of Praxis. These systems hold materials we need. Your government refused our fair request. Therefore, the Empire now declares total war." The words hung in the air. No one moved. The Zelthari delegation, 10 tall figures in silver armor, stood perfectly still. Their red eyes did not blink. Behind them, huge hologram screens showed the Empire's war fleet. Thousands of sharp black ships waited in formation. Tiny lights blinked on their hulls like hungry eyes. The fleet was so large it blocked whole sections of stars. On the other side of the long obsidian table sat the human delegation. There were only 5 of them. They wore simple gray suits, no armor, no weapons. In the middle sat Ambassador Thomas Hale. He looked about 50 years old. His hair was short and gray at the sides. His face was calm. Small lines appeared at the corners of his eyes when he smiled, which he did now. Vextra continued, "You have 72 standard hours to surrender all military forces and open your worlds to occupation. If you refuse, we will begin bombardment. Cities, factories, farms, all will burn until nothing remains. This is not a threat, it is fact." They spoke them like stones dropping into still water. The silence lasted almost 10 seconds. Then Thomas Hale leaned forward. He reached into the old leather bag at his feet. Everyone watched. The Zelthari thought perhaps he would pull out a formal document of surrender, or maybe a data crystal with Earth's last offer. Instead, he took out one sheet of paper. It was not fancy, just normal white paper, folded once. The edges were a little rough. It smelled faintly of ink and warm machines. Hale unfolded it slowly. He held it up so the lights caught the black print. The front page had big bold letters. Empire declares war. Official. Below that, smaller words. Humanity mobilizes. Stock markets up 3%. Weather forecast clear with a chance of retaliation. Hale looked at the headline for a moment. Then he smiled. It was not a big smile. Not proud or angry. Just a small, quiet smile. Like someone who heard a joke only he understood. He chuckled once. Very soft. Almost to himself. Then he slid the newspaper across the table. It glided smoothly on the polished black surface and stopped right in front of Vextra. The High Chancellor stared at the paper. His color shifted fast, violet to sharp red. One of his aides stepped forward and picked it up with 2 careful fingers, as if it might bite. The aide scanned it quickly. His eyes moved left to right, then back again. The subheadings were simple. Fleet review cancelled. Ships already moving. Civilian sign-ups pass 400% goal in first hour. Grandmother of 3 joins as combat engineer. Been ready since 47. School bake sale raises money for railgun shells. There were photos too. One showed a line of people outside a recruitment office. They smiled and held paper cups of coffee. Another showed children painting pictures of warships on a sidewalk with chalk. A third showed an old man in a rocking chair on his porch, newspaper in his lap, waving at a drone camera. No screaming, no burning flags, No crowds in the streets crying for peace. Vextra finally spoke. His voice was lower now. This object, what is its purpose? Thomas Hale leaned back in his chair. It's today's newspaper, he said. Printed this morning in New York. We still make them the old way sometimes. People like the feel of real paper. The High Chancellor looked at the page again. You give us newsprint when your species faces destruction. Hale shrugged. You asked for our answer. That's it. A murmur went through the Zelthari group. One officer whispered something fast in their own language. Another shook his head. Vextra lifted one long arm. Explain your intention. Hale thought for a second. We read the news. We drink coffee. We go to work. And when someone threatens to burn our homes, he pointed at the headline, we put it on page 1. Then we get started. He stood up. The other 4 humans stood with him. That's all for now, Hale said. 72 hours, right? We'll be in touch. He gave one last small smile, same as before, and walked toward the exit. His steps were slow and even. The doors opened silently. The humans left without looking back. The Zelthari stayed in the hall a long time after that. One analyst took high-resolution scans of every page. Another sent urgent messages to the fleet command. A third tried to understand why the headline said stock markets went up. It made no sense. When a species faced death, their money should crash, their people should panic, their leaders should beg. But the numbers were green. The photos showed smiles, and the weather forecast, on the bottom right corner, even joked about chance of retaliation. Vextra kept the newspaper. He folded it carefully and placed it inside his robe. Outside the station, the human shuttle left quietly. No dramatic engines, no bright flares, just a small silver craft slipping away toward the jump point. On board, Thomas Hale sat in the passenger seat. One of his aides, a young woman named Priya, looked at him. Did you see their faces? She asked. Hale nodded. They looked confused. She laughed quietly. Good. He pulled another copy of the same newspaper from his bag. This one he opened to the crossword puzzle on page 12. He took a pen from his pocket. 7 letters, he read aloud. Response to bullies who bring fleets. Priya leaned over. Smile? Hale wrote it in. Close. 8 letters, actually. Try again. Then she grinned. Newspaper. He filled it in and nodded. Exactly. Far behind them, the Zelthari fleet began final checks. Engines warmed. Weapons powered up. 30,000 ships turned toward human space. On Earth, in cities and towns and quiet villages, people bought extra copies of the paper that morning. They folded them under their arms. They read them over breakfast. They talked about the headlines the way they talked about sports scores or weekend plans. No one ran. No one hid. They just smiled a little more than usual. And somewhere in a small print shop in Lahore, another press started rolling. Fresh ink, fresh paper, same headline. The clock started. 72 hours. The neutral station was already far behind them. Inside the human shuttle, the lights were soft and warm. Thomas Hale sat near a small window. He looked out at the stars sliding past. The jump drive hummed quietly. Priya, his young aide, sat across from them with a tablet. She kept refreshing news feeds from Earth. They're already printing extras, she said. Every major city, even small towns. People are lining up at newsstands like it's the weekend edition. Hale nodded. Good. Let them see the paper in their hands. Back at the station, the Zelthari team worked fast. High Chancellor Vextra held the single sheet of newspaper like it was a live explosive. His aides scanned every word, every photo, every tiny advertisement in the corners. They sent high-quality images to the fleet analysts waiting light years away. In the war room of the flagship Eternal Dominion, A circle of Zelthari officers gathered around a large hollow table. The newspaper floated above them in bright light. They zoomed in on the headline again and again. Empire declares war. Official. One officer, a young analyst named Lirkaz, pointed at the second line. Stock market's up 3%, he said. How? Their economy should be falling apart. Fear makes value drop. Another officer, older and scarred from past campaigns, crossed two of his arms. Maybe it is a trick. False numbers to confuse us. They pulled up human financial data from open channels. Numbers did not lie. Trading continued normally. Some companies even rose. Shipbuilding firms, weapon makers, even coffee importers. One small note caught their eye. Extra shifts approved. Double overtime for all war production roles. Lirkaz frowned. They treat war like a busy season at a factory. They moved to the photos. A grandmother in a bright yellow vest stood next to a huge railgun barrel. She held a wrench and smiled wide. The caption read, Evelyn Carter, 78. I fixed tractors for 40 years. This is just a bigger tractor. Another photo showed kids in school uniforms, stacking boxes labeled Projectile Components, School District 14 Fundraiser. They grinned at the camera like they were proud of a science fair project. The Zelthari could not understand it. In their long history, no species had ever greeted invasion with jokes and big sales. Enemies either fought in terror or begged for mercy. This was different. This was calm. Too calm. Vexthra ordered deeper scans. They hacked public human networks, easy work for their systems. They found live camera feeds from Earth cities. Times Square in New York. People walked normally. Some held the newspaper. Vendors sold hot dogs and fresh copies side by side. A street musician played cheerful music. No riots. No panic. In Tokyo, crowds waited at train stations with folded papers under their arms. In Cairo, men sat at sidewalk cafes reading the same front page over tea. In Sao Paulo, children ran through parks waving small printed flags made from the extra pages. Everywhere the same thing, quiet action. Factories lit up at night. Trucks moved fast on highways. Airports stayed busy, not with people fleeing, but with cargo planes taking off, loaded with parts. One feed showed a printing press in Lahore. The user watched rolls of paper spin fast. Workers in simple shirts stacked fresh bundles. The headline was the same on every sheet. A man in the background laughed and held his copy up to the camera. He gave a thumbs up. The Zelthari watched in silence. Lirkaz spoke softly. They are not afraid. Or if they are, they hide it behind paper and smiles. Vexthra closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his color was steady deep blue, calm but cold. Send the fleet forward, he ordered. Let them see what fear really looks like when our beams fall. The armada moved. 30,000 ships jumped in perfect waves. They appeared at the edge of the Kale 9 system first. The human colony there had only 2 small defense platforms and a handful of patrol ships. The Zelthari expected surrender signals within minutes. Instead, every human channel started broadcasting the same thing. A simple video loop. Ordinary people, farmers, teachers, shop owners, nurses held up copies of that morning's newspaper. They looked straight at the camera. They smiled. Not big crazy smiles, just normal, friendly smiles, like they were greeting neighbors. A woman in a bakery apron said, "Good morning. We saw your message. Here's ours." She held the paper higher. A mechanic covered in grease lifted his copy. "Nice fleet. Hope you like the welcome party." An old man on a porch swing rocked slowly. "Weather's good today. Bring sunscreen." The loop played on every frequency. It did not stop. The Zelthari commander on the lead ship felt strange. His skin prickled. He had seen species break before. This was not breaking. This was ignoring. He gave the order to fire warning shots. Bright energy lances cut through space toward an empty asteroid field near the colony. The asteroids exploded in pretty flashes. No one on the human side reacted. No distress calls. No ships running away. Instead, a new broadcast started. Another newspaper headline appeared on every screen. Zelthari arrive for photo op. Locals prepare barbecue. Below it, a live photo feed. Families on a colony rooftop setting up grills. Smoke rose in thin lines. Kids waved at the sky where the huge black ships hung like storm clouds. One boy held a sign made from torn newspaper. "We have extra burgers." The Zelthari hesitated. In the command center of Eternal Dominion, officers argued. "Psychological attack," one said. "Cultural defect," another answered. "Or maybe they are truly not afraid," Lirkaz said quietly. No one answered him. Across human space, more printing presses ran day and night. Paper trucks drove through quiet streets at dawn. People opened their doors and took fresh copies with sleepy smiles. They read the same words over coffee. They talked about it like any other big news. In living rooms, parents explained to children, "Some big aliens are upset. We're going to be polite but firm." Children nodded and went back to drawing pictures of spaceships with crayons. In bars, people raised glasses. To the newspaper, they said. Laughter followed. On factory floors, workers sang old songs while they welded armor plates. The rhythm kept them steady. No one cried. They worked. They smiled. They waited. The 72 hours ticked down. On the last day, a single message went out from Earth to the Zelthari fleet. Short, clear, sent on every open channel. "Thank you for your patience. Full coverage continues in tomorrow's edition." Attached was a preview image of the next front page. The headline read, "Day 1, still here, still reading." And under it, in small friendly print, "Coffee strong, spirits high, see you soon." The Zelthari read it. They looked at each other. For the first time in centuries, a small feeling moved through their ranks. Uncertainty. Far away on Earth, Thomas Hale sat on his porch in a small house outside the city. The sun was setting. He held today's paper in his lap. The headline was still the same. He smiled at it. A breeze moved the pages. He turned to the crossword and picked up his pen. The 72 hours ended at exactly 0. No trumpet sound, no dramatic silence. Just the quiet click of clocks ticking over on 1 billion human devices. In the Kale 9 system, the Zelthari armada formed a perfect wall of black metal. 30,000 ships blocked the sun. Their shadows fell long and cold across the small colony world below. Blue-green planet, thin atmosphere, 2 million people, mostly miners and farmers, the kind of place empires usually crushed in hours. Over-Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. He was taller than most Zelthari, with deep scars across his chest plates. His voice was rough from years of giving orders. "Target primary population centers," he said. "Fire in sequence. Let them feel the first strike." Weapons officers moved their long fingers over controls. Energy banks hummed. Bright lances built up in the barrels. Then every screen on the bridge changed at once. Human channels broke in. No warning, no static, just clear pictures from the surface. Families stood on rooftops. They held newspapers high. The same front page from 3 days ago. They smiled up at the sky full of ships. Children waved. One little girl had drawn a smiley face on her copy with red crayon. A man in a hard hat spoke into a camera. "Morning, everyone. Weather's nice today. Hope you brought shade." Another feed showed a park. People sat on blankets eating sandwiches. They pointed at the huge shadows overhead and laughed like it was a funny cloud. Kresh felt his skin tighten. Cut those feeds. They could not. The signals were everywhere. Open bands, civilian bands, even emergency channels. Humans did not hide. They shared. Kresh gave the order anyway. Fire. The first beams dropped. White-hot lines cut through space toward the main mining dome. Point defense grids answered before the beams hit halfway. Small silver turrets rose from the colony surface like flowers opening. They tracked fast. Lasers snapped out. Railgun darts flew in quiet lines. Every Zelthari strike met metal and light. Explosions bloomed high in the atmosphere. Pretty fireworks. Nothing reached the ground. Kresh stared. Impossible. Their listed defenses are minimal. An officer checked data. Those turrets were not on any registry. They must have built them in secret. Kresh turned to the next feed, a factory on the colony's dark side. Workers in overalls cheered as they watched screens. One held up a fresh newspaper. New headline. Nice try, thanks for the light show. Below it, a photo of the same factory crew eating pizza under the dome lights. Caption. Extra cheese, extra shifts. Not anger. Something colder. Across the border systems, the pattern repeated. In Torva Belt, human freighters that looked like old cargo haulers suddenly changed course. They accelerated at numbers no Zelthari engine could match. Hidden thrusters glowed blue. They slipped between the enemy formation like fish through reeds. Railguns spoke from unexpected angles. Precise. Calm. One shot per target. Engines died. Weapons went dark. Ships drifted. Boarding teams followed. Humans in simple vacuum suits. Some carried machetes next to plasma rifles. They laughed over open channels. Room service, one voice said. We brought the morning paper. Captured Zelthari crews sat in their own mess halls. Humans passed out fresh printed sheets. Headlines changed every few hours now. Day 1, fleet looks tired already. Lost count of disabled ships, coffee break time. Photos showed human pilots posing next to wrecked enemy fighters. They smiled. Thumbs up. One held a mug that said Best Boss 2147. On Praxis rings, the automated hive swarms met something worse than guns. Human ships painted like fishing boats drifted close. They opened bays. Swarms of small drones poured out. Not military drones, delivery drones, cleaning drones, racing drones, all reprogrammed. They moved in happy swarms. They attached to Zelthari hulls. Tiny cutters worked. They carved polite holes. Then more drones went inside and started short-circuiting systems. One Zelthari pilot broadcast in panic. They are smiling at us through the cameras. The feed showed a human face on a cracked view screen. The human waved a newspaper. Hi there. Nice paint job. Want a subscription? Back on Eternal Dominion, Kresh watched report after report. Losses climbed, not fast, steady, like water wearing stone. Every time a ship fell, a new broadcast appeared. Ordinary people, different clothes, different faces, same smile. A teacher in a classroom held the paper. Kids behind her drew pictures of exploding ships with happy faces. A nurse in a hospital smiled while she checked a patient. War's on, still gotta take your medicine. A truck driver on a dirt road waved his copy out the window. Catch! He threw it, a drone caught it mid-air, and flew it toward a Zelthari scout ship. The scout did not fire. It just watched. Kresh closed all channels. Enough. He walked to his private room. On the table lay the first newspaper Thomas Hale had given. It was starting to crease from many readings. He opened it again, looked at the smiling faces, the calm words, the joke about retaliation in the weather box. For the first time, Kresh wondered if the smile meant something worse than rage. On Earth, printing presses never stopped. In Lahore, workers drank tea between shifts. They stacked papers high. Trucks left before sunrise. People met them at street corners, took copies, read them on buses, on trains, in parks. Headlines grew bolder, but stayed calm. Day 2. Guests still overstaying, sending more invitations. Empire losses at 12%. Humanity still has cake. One photo showed a birthday party under open sky. Banner read, Happy War Day. Kids blew out candles shaped like tiny spaceships. In New York, Times Square screens lipped the same smiles. People gathered, not to protest, to watch. They ate hot dogs, they talked, they laughed. In small villages, old radios played news. Farmers listened while they fed animals. Went back to work. No one asked why humanity smiled. They knew. The smile said, we have seen worse mornings. We have rebuilt after worse storms. This is just another headline. And headlines pass, but the paper stays. On the front lines, a young Zelthari soldier sat in a damaged fighter. His ship drifted, power low. He watched the last feed before it cut. A human woman, middle-aged, in a kitchen. She folded laundry. She looked at the camera. Don't worry, she said. We'll clean up after. She smiled. Then she held up tomorrow's paper. The headline, still smiling. You? The soldier stared at the words until the screen went black. Outside, the war continued. Quiet, precise, with smiles. The war moved past days into weeks, then months. The Zelthari Empire, which had never lost a real fight in 300 years, started to feel something new. Doubt. It crept in slow, like cold air through a cracked window. Over-Admiral Kresh no longer stood tall on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. He sat most of the time now. His skin had lost some shine. The scars looked deeper. Reports came in every hour, each one shorter than the last. Sector 7 lost 12 cruisers. Praxis Ring's outer station silent. Hive Swarm Delta destroyed by delivery drones. He read them without speaking. His officers watched him. They waited for the old fire. It did not come. On the human side, things looked different. Not loud, not angry. Just steady. Factories ran 24 hours. Lights never went out. Workers changed shifts with quick nods and tired smiles. They read the daily paper during breaks. Headlines stayed calm. Week 3. Empire still visiting. We still have snacks. Zelthari losses now 31%. Rain expected tomorrow. High Chancellor promises quick victory. Locals book summer vacations. Every morning, trucks rolled out from print shops. Fresh bundles dropped at street corners, train stations, apartment lobbies. People picked them up. Some folded them into pockets. Others opened them right there and read while walking. In a small town outside Lahore, an old woman named Aisha sat on her porch every dawn. She waited for the boy on the bicycle who brought her copy. When he handed it over, she smiled the same small smile Thomas Hale had used months ago. Thank you, Beta, she said. He smiled back. Same headline today, Auntie. They're stubborn. She laughed softly. So are we. She read the front page slowly. Then she turned to the back. The weather box always had a joke now. Chance of peace talks, low. Chance of tea, high. Across the stars, human ships moved in ways the Zelthari could not predict. They did not charge in big groups. They appeared from nowhere. Hit once, vanished. Then another group appeared somewhere else. One day, a Zelthari battle group of 200 ships waited near an empty gas giant. They scanned for traps. Nothing showed. Then small lights blinked on. Human corvettes, not new. Old hulls painted in bright colors like fishing boats. They accelerated hard. Railguns fired in perfect lines. Zelthari shields flickered and died. Engines went dark. Boarding teams came next. Humans in plain suits. Some carried tools more than guns. They walked corridors laughing. "Morning shift," one called. "Got the paper?" another asked. A Zelthari Marine raised his weapon. A human tossed him a folded sheet instead. "Read page 1, the human said. "It's about you." The Marine looked down. Headline: "Another battle group down. Coffee break recommended." He stared at the photo. Humans sitting on crates, eating sandwiches, next to a smoking Zelthari turret. The Marine lowered his gun. Stories like this spread through the Zelthari ranks, quiet at first, then louder. Soldiers talked in mess halls. "Every time we hit them, they smile more. They print new papers faster than we lose ships. I saw one human wave at me while my fighter died." He held up today's edition. Kresh heard the whispers. He did nothing to stop them. On Earth, children drew pictures for the war effort. Schools held contests. Best drawing of a smiling spaceship won extra ice cream. Parents hung the pictures on fridges next to newspaper clippings. In hospitals, doctors worked longer hours. Nurses read headlines to patients who could not hold the paper themselves. "Still winning," one nurse told an old man in bed. He smiled weakly. "Of course we are. We have the better jokes." In space, the fighting grew strange. A Zelthari dreadnought fired everything it had at a human mining station. The beams met defense grids again. Then the station answered, not with guns, with music. Old human songs blasted across open channels. Happy tunes, dance music, songs about summer and love and lazy Sundays. Between songs, calm voices read the latest headlines. Dreadnought wastes ammo, locals rate fireworks, 6 to 10. The Zelthari crew listened. Some turned the sound down. Others left it on. They sat in silence while the music played. High Chancellor Vextra stayed in his private chambers on the throne world. He had not left them in weeks. Servants brought him food he did not eat. Reports he did not read. One aide entered quietly. "Sir, losses now at 68%. Outer sectors, gone. Middle fleets, broken." Vextra looked at the first newspaper Hale had given him. It sat on his desk like a stone. The ink had faded a little. He opened it one more time, looked at the smiling faces, the calm words. "Why?" he asked the empty room. No answer came. Outside the throne world, human ships arrived. Not an invasion fleet, just enough to be seen. They floated in high orbit, no weapons charged, no threats sent. A single message came down. "Time to talk?" Vextra stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then he stood. He walked to the main hall. Servants followed. Guards stepped aside. He entered the same obsidian chamber where it all started. The long black table waited, empty. He sat at one end. Hours passed. A shuttle landed quietly on the platform outside. No guards, no guns, just one man. Thomas Hale stepped inside. He carried the same old leather bag. He wore the same gray suit. He walked to the table, sat at the other end. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Hale reached into the bag. He pulled out one last newspaper. Fresh, still warm from the press. He unfolded it, slid it across the table. Vextra looked down. The headline in the biggest letters yet. "War ends today. Empire surrenders. Humanity wins." Below it, smaller print. "Thanks for coming. Better luck next time." Hale smiled. The same small, polite smile from the first day. Vextra stared at the words. His color shifted slowly. Blue, then gray, then pale. He reached out, touched the paper with one long finger. Hale stood. "That's it," he said. "We'll leave your world as we found it. No fires, no ruins. Just a lesson." He turned to go. Vextra spoke, voice low, almost broken. "Why the paper? Why the smiles?" Hale stopped at the door, looked back. Because we've read bad news before, he said. We know how it ends when you panic. We know how it ends when you fight angry. So we chose different. We chose normal. We chose to keep going. And we wrote it down every day so everyone could see. He paused. And because it's hard to fear someone who treats your armada like a minor traffic jam. Hale gave one last smile. Then he left. Vextra stayed alone with the newspaper. He turned to the back page. The weather forecast for the capital: clear skies, light breeze, chance of freedom, 100%. Outside, white banners rose on every spire. The war was over. Not with fire, not with screams, with smiles, and one last addition. The throne world of the Zelthari Empire looked different now. The tall spires still reached for the stars, but white banners hung from every one. They moved gently in the artificial wind. No alarms sounded. No soldiers marched in the streets. The huge Dyson segment that once glowed with power now felt quiet, almost empty. Inside the central palace, High Chancellor Vextra walked the long corridors alone. His footsteps echoed. Servants bowed low when he passed, but he did not look at them. His skin stayed pale gray. No more shifting colors. No more pride. He entered the obsidian chamber where everything had started. The black table waited under bright lights. One chair stood at the far end. Vextra sat in his usual place. He waited. Outside, a small silver shuttle touched down on the landing platform. No escort ships, no weapons showing, just one craft. Quiet engines, quiet landing. The doors opened. Thomas Hale stepped out. Same old leather bag over his shoulder. He carried nothing else. No guards followed him. He walked straight to the chamber. When he entered, Vextra looked up. The two of them stared at each other across the long table. No anger, no fear, just silence. Hale pulled out the chair at the other end. He sat down slowly. He placed the leather bag on the floor beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Hale reached into the bag. He took out one sheet of paper. Fresh, still warm. The ink smelled new. He unfolded it with care. He looked at it for a second. A small smile touched his lips. He slid the newspaper across the smooth black surface. It stopped right in front of Vextra. The High Chancellor looked down. The headline filled the top in the biggest letters anyone had ever used. War ends today. Empire surrenders. Humanity wins. Under it, in smaller but clear print, thanks for coming. Better luck next time. Vextra stared at the words. His long fingers touched the edge of the paper. He did not lift it yet. Hale leaned back a little. That's the final edition, he said. Printed this morning. We stopped the presses after this one. No need for more. Vextra's voice came out soft, almost a whisper. You knew, from the first day. Hale shrugged. We hoped. Hoping is free. The High Chancellor finally picked up the paper. He opened it slowly, turned the pages. Photos showed human streets, people walking normally, children playing, shops open. No ruins, no fires, just life going on. One photo showed a family picnic under a clear sky. A Zelthari cruiser floated high above them, like a dark cloud. The family waved at it, smiling. Another photo showed workers in a shipyard. They stood next to a half-built railgun. They held newspapers. Thumbs up. Vextra stopped at the back page. The weather forecast box read, clear skies, light breeze, chance of freedom, 100%. He looked up at Hale. Why? He asked. Why not destroy us? Why not take everything? Hale thought for a moment. Because we don't need your worlds. We don't need your ships. We need neighbors who understand one simple thing. He pointed at the newspaper still in Vextra's hands. We read bad news every day for thousands of years. Wars, plagues, disasters. We learn something. Panic makes it worse. Rage makes it last longer. But if you keep your head up, keep working, keep smiling, the bad days pass, and the next edition comes out on time. Vexthra folded the paper carefully. He placed it on the table in front of him. You made the war small, he said. Hale nodded. Normal things end. Silence returned. Then Vexthra stood. He walked around the table. He stopped in front of Hale. He held out one long hand. Hale stood too. He took the hand. They shook once, firm, no anger. Vexthra spoke again. Our fleets will stand down. Our worlds will open. Your terms. Hale smiled the same small smile. No terms. Just go home. Fix what's broken. Read the news when it comes. And maybe next time, ask first. Vexthra looked at the paper one more time. He nodded. Hale picked up his bag. He turned toward the door. At the threshold he stopped, looked back. One more thing, he said. We left copies of every edition in your archives. Every headline, every photo, every joke, so your children can read them someday. And remember. Vexthra did not answer. Hale walked out. The doors closed behind him. Vexthra sat down again, alone. He opened the newspaper once more, read every word slowly, looked at every face. Outside, the white banners waved. On Earth, people woke up to a quiet morning. No sirens, no alerts. Trucks still delivered papers, but the headline was different now. Peace returns. Normal service resumed. People read it over coffee. They smiled a little wider. Then they went to work, to school, to the park. In Lahore, Aisha sat on her porch. The boy on the bicycle brought her copy. She opened it, read the new headline, laughed softly. Good, she said. Very good. She folded the paper neatly, placed it beside her tea. In New York, Times Square screens showed the same front page. People gathered, not to cheer, just to see. They nodded, went on with their day. In small villages, farmers listened to the radio. The newsreader spoke in a calm voice. A war is over. Life continues. No one shouted. They just kept going. In space, human ships turned for home. They moved slow, no rush. Pilots talked over open channels. Nice trip, one said. Next time bring better snacks, another answered. Laughter followed. On the throne world, Vexthra stood at a high window. He looked out at the stars. He held the last newspaper in his hand. He thought about the smiles, the calm words, the quiet strength. He thought about how a whole empire could fall, not to fire or fury, but to people who refused to be afraid. He placed the paper on a shelf. He would keep it there. Forever. Far away, Thomas Hale sat in his small house outside the city. The sun set slow and gold. He held today's paper in his lap. The headline was peaceful now. He smiled at it. Then he turned to the crossword. What humanity does best. He wrote the answer in careful letters. Endure. He closed the paper. Outside, the world kept turning. Quiet, normal, and ready for whatever came next, with a fresh edition every morning.